Hey everybody, this is American Nana, and I wanted to make this video just because, when the Commonwealth asked to not have Dr. Marie Russell as a qualified expert, um, heck, I think the defense ought to also be able to ask her if his arm was in fact the result of a busted taillight that chased him and just gouged out certain areas. Um, so I did a little online searching and I found one of these websites. This is Seek Expert Witness Directory. Marie Russell, MD, Hanford, California. Emergency medicine, forensic medicine, physician, and additional states that she testified in, Massachusetts and New York. Specialties and experience of this expert witness. General specialties, emergency medicine and forensic pathology. Homicide, strangulation, motor vehicle accident, correctional medicine, overdose, death, gunshot wound, dog bite, jail or prison medicine, urgent care, domestic violence, stab wound, fall, police abuse, trauma, child physical abuse, assault, fracture, deliberate indifference, infection. Been in practice for 35 years. Additional information, emergency medicine, board certified, forensic pathology, correctional health care, autopsy review. 29-year physician experience at Level 1 Trauma Center. Retired faculty member, USC Keck School of Medicine. Taught physicians and medical students for over 20 years. Former California Medical Board in-house medical consultant for 7 years. CDCR Chief Medical Executive, retired certified correctional healthcare professional, former full-time police officer, 7 years. Fellow, National Associations of Medical Examiners, Fellow, American Academy of Forensic Science. Over 500 autopsies performed, testified in multiple state, federal, district court, and numerous trials. That's what Seek has to say about her. Now, let me get the other article. There's a couple. So already, just in reading that, um, after the Commonwealth had Trooper Paul up there who took a few classes, qualified as an expert, who was allowed to testify in a manner that nobody still knows what the Commonwealth thinks. Well, we do know. The Commonwealth thinks that Karen Reed was angry, sped backwards 24 miles an hour, hit John O'Keefe with her car. Her tail light came in contact with his, was it his right arm? And then he spun around and they forgot that he had to hit his head before he ended up in the middle of the yard because once he received the blow to the head, he was incapacitated. So Trooper Paul says he hit his head on the curb, and after he hit his head on the curb and was rendered incapacitated, I guess he somehow pirouetted into the middle of the yard. He took a few classes and he was allowed to be an expert. So that's all I'm saying there. He was the biggest idiot I've ever seen. Okay. All right. Here is this one. One of a kind. Now, this is from the year 2000. Granted, it's 24 years old, but this is from Science and Medicine, Los Angeles Times. It's the Times health writer. It's striking how much Dr. Marie Russell still thinks like a cop. Inside the emergency room at County USC Medical Center on a recent afternoon, she worries almost as much about preserving the bullet that pierced a shooting victim's flesh as she does about his physical discomfort. After urging the physician's assistant to remove the bullet without any metal tools that could mar the markings crucial in a police investigation, she then gently asked the patient for permission to see and photograph his wound and his tattoos. The 32-year-old man, shot 6 hours after being paroled, obligingly pulls up his shirt so she can examine the massive discolored bruise that is developing where the bullet lodged after missing his spine. "You lucked out," she tells him. "You could have been paralyzed." Then, as he rolls up his left shirt sleeve, she leans in for a closer look at the multicolored peacock on his inner arm, knowing full well that peacocks and dragons are commonly tattooed inside the arm to hide signs of drug abuse. She nonetheless asks why he chose the design. Acknowledging that he had used heroin, the man doesn't mention the fresh puncture indicating he likely injected earlier that day. Without expressing any judgment, Russell takes a few snapshots of the tattoo as well, then steps from behind the examining room curtain. "The injection site is something I don't have in my photo collection," she says, sounding like a butterfly collector who just snagged a prize specimen. The former Malden, Mass. police officer who traded a uniform and walking shoes for scrubs and sneakers years ago has an unusual resume in this world of inner city trauma care. On top of police skills, she has honed her trauma skills within 2 miles of 30 East LA street gangs and studied forensic pathology under LA's famous former coroner, Thomas Noguchi. She has shot more than 750 photos of tattoos and hundreds more of unusual wounds to help her understand how they're inflicted and how they heal. Russell incorporates the photos into lectures she delivers here and abroad to medical students, law enforcement, and forensic societies. She shares medical and sociological insights into sexual assaults, domestic violence, child abuse, and the drug use and prison histories of gang members. She is certainly single handedly developing a new field of what you call clinical forensic medicine, Noguchi says. "We only have one Marie Russell, but we need at least 1,000 such persons to serve major communities." County USC faculty noticed Russell early in her residency because of her multiple disciplinary skills and recruited her for a permanent faculty spot, says Dr. Catherine R. Challenger, an emergency room doctor and fellow faculty member. "It's a joy to have her around. The first person I would go to for questions about tattoos or forensics or ballistics or gang affiliation or pathology information would be Marie," says Coloner, who turned to Russell on touchy cases inside the hospital's jail unit, such as suspected cruelty or child abuse. Moses Remedios, the physician's assistant who asked for her advice on whether to remove the bullet from the flank of the tattooed gunshot victim, says, "She's got that total cop, street smart going. Plus, she's a good doctor." He then extracted the bullet with his gloved fingers as requested. She always knew she wanted to be a doctor, although she began her career as a police officer. Russell, 45, says always knew she wanted to be a doctor. A native of Woodside, New York. She was one of five children raised by a father who worked for the railroad and a mother who did clerical work. Russell remembers as far back as second grade admiring her family doctor, a woman who later gave the teenage Russell some of her medical journals. A good student, Russell spent a year at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, but moved home when her mother developed cancer. After her mother's death, she returned to Massachusetts and began taking courses in criminalistics and criminal investigation at Northeastern University. Then, on a dare, she took the police exam and passed. Although she hadn't set out to become a police officer, Russell knew that there were funds available to help officers further their educations. So she completed police training and became the first female officer in Malden, Massachusetts, north of Boston. While on patrol there, she pursued her bachelor's degree in psychology, an emergency medical technician course, and a stint as an emergency room clerk got her hooked on emergency medicine. So she applied to medical school of University of Massachusetts. By 1983, which she recalls as the hardest year of her life, she was 28 years old, juggling first year medical studies with a full time police job 50 miles away. In her second year of medical school, she was introduced to pathology and found herself torn between doing advanced training in that or emergency medicine. She could only do both at a big city medical center with an affiliated coroner's office, so she headed to County USC in 1987 for her residency. While examining gunshot and stab wounds suffered by patients from surrounding neighborhoods, she became fascinated by their tattoos' meanings. The more I asked, the more I became interested, she recalled. Studying the markings of the various gangs, understanding forensic significance of the symbols has helped shape her handling of patients, especially shooting victims. For example, before county USC doctors understood gang tattoos, they inadvertently put members of opposing gangs in the same treatment areas. Sometimes that created problems, Russell says, such as gang members threatening and verbally abusing each other. So the hospital staff began limiting visitors to gang members' mothers and at times admitting the patients under synonyms to keep rival gangs from trying to come after them. There have been many incidents in this hospital where gang members have tried to come into the hospital and finish the job, she says. Russell has become alert to the distinctive markings of Black and Latino gangs and white supremacists who come through the doors, learning about symbols and numerals that are a mystery to most people. At one time, Russell asked a patient if his 11550 tattoo signified his zip code, since she knew some LA gangs had a 213 area code tattoo to identify their home turf. The patient responded that the five digits represented the penal code for being under the influence of a controlled substance. Since then, Russell has learned to recognize many symbols of prison past. The number of teardrop tattoos below the corner of the eye can indicate how many years a patient has been in prison. A Salvador Dali like image of a melting clock means the person has done time, and the prominent image of the Madonna or Christ tattooed on the back are used to deter prison R. Some tattoos influence her medical decisions. An unexplained fever in a patient symbols of drug use may indicate the possibility of drug related infections. Prison watchtowers or symbols of homosexual acts may make her suspect HIV or hepatitis. Despite her demanding schedule in the emergency room, where she's apt to help a patient untangle an intravenous line as she is to mobilize a trauma team and teaching at a county USC and Cal State LA. She's also managing to raise a nephew, 14, and a niece, 18, now married. Now remember, this was written in the year 2000. Bringing up children is the hardest thing I've done, she says. It also made her give up the guns she had since she was a police officer. The guns moved out of the house the day my children arrived, said Russell, who is, by her own admission, a fanatic about safety. She'd been known to annoy her family by giving smoke detectors for Christmas. Russell knows she inhabits a different world than that of most people. A point driven home one day at her niece and nephew's school when she suddenly realized that an incident that disturbed the nuns there was a minor compared with what I hear and see every day. It occurred to me that crime and violence are not part of their life. My life is so different. My life centers around violence. Even at home, she spends hours scanning her forensic photos into a computer. In her prized time off, she manages to put the darkness aside to swim or camp, although she does admit her preferred recreational reading is true crime. So, even though that was 20 years ago, or I'm sorry, 24 years ago, and no mention of a dog because we're talking mostly about people in jail, um, that was rather interesting to me. So then here's one that says Marie A. Russell's research while affiliated with Harvard Medical School and other places. Managing law enforcement canine dog bites in emergency department, 1996. Right, citations, academic emergency medicine, and she wrote this article. Objective to review the types of injuries due to law enforcement canine dog bites and address related management issues. Methods a case series of law enforcement dog bite victims is reported and related literature reviewed. Results law enforcement dogs are taught to bite and hold technique for subduing individuals suspected of felony crimes. This bite and hold technique's greater applied force results in unique spectrum of injuries, including deep puncture wounds, severe crush injuries, large tissue avulsions and lacerations, wounds necessitating surgical debridement, bony injuries ranging from cortical violations to displaced fractures, neurovascular damage, and other wounds at high risk for infection. The four reported cases highlight the types of injuries and complications associated with law enforcement dog bites. Conclusion attention to potential deep injuries of nerves, vessels, and the musculoskeletal system is essential with law enforcement dog bites. Injuries associated both with pursuit and arrest and with the bite themselves must be identified and assessed. Guidelines for the ED treatment of patients with law enforcement dog bites injuries are proposed. You know, the one thing that's interesting is dog bites, right? That is just too much. Citing article April 1996, Academic Emergency Medicine. Canine bites requires more hospital time, invasive testing and operations. Mead, 2006, Pineda et al., whatever. Anyway, some survey medical records to test the impact of the canine policy changes in Los Angeles, reviewing 790 police canine bite records. The authors find that the change from find and bite to bark and hold policy resulted in massive decreases in the number of bites. I think they wrote that backwards. I think it was supposed to be, yeah, no, that was right. Jeez, I'm tired. Authors find that from the find and bite to the bark and hold. Yeah. That was also up in the other one too. So, sucrose as an aid to manual reduction of no, no, not going there. So that was interesting. Now, my question to Brennan is simple. Do you really think that the dog biting has changed much? I mean, I would think that they're still going to bite the same now as they did back then. They don't wear dentures still. Um, they don't get braces. I mean, their teeth are the same. They haven't evolved. A dog bite is a dog bite. Dog's teeth are dog teeth. It doesn't matter if it was 20 years ago when she saw it. Doesn't matter if it's 50 years ago. She's going to know dog bite when she sees one. And if you listen and you look back and you listen to the things that are said about this doctor, she is extremely concerned about her people. So she wants to know why. If nothing else, look at her. She is just always wanting to know and to have um, explanations for what has happened. She studied it, she researched it, she cares. So that's what I found. Any experience with a dog bite, you're going to, she looked at how many? I mean, they only listed 700 and something in one of them. How many of those did she look at? Well, I guarantee you, any that she came across, she would have looked at and asked to take pictures so she could study it. She's a sponge. She's a sponge for the research, she's a sponge for understanding, and she's a sponge for making sure she's got it right. So why would we want her on the stand? Well, the Commonwealth clearly would not want her on the stand because she saw what everybody else saw when they saw that arm and said, those are dog bites. Now, had she gotten the records and gotten back in touch with them and said, oh, no, those weren't caused by a dog, uh-uh, then Lowley could have her up there for him, right? I mean, Lowley only wishes he could find someone as credible as Dr. Russell. But because Dr. Russell had the audacity to reach out to the attorney to let him know she may could help. When he sent that information, she didn't say, I can help by telling you it's for sure a dog bite. She said I could probably clear it up, right? Meaning I can probably look at the information that you have and I can probably tell you with my experience, my expertise, all the years of teaching, training, and treating, I'll be able to tell you if it was a dog bite. I'd be able to tell you if it was a car. It was a dog bite. It was not a car. So, and by the way, Brennan, there's a few other folks that say the same thing. I think anybody that knows dog bites be happy to come and testify for the defense. So y'all y'all better just get ready. And how Beverly could possibly not find her credible, that would be a sight to behold after she let her another one, right? Surely she's not that stupid. Of course, Shirley didn't have anything to do with it. It's all Beverly. But hold up, I have one more thing. Okay, everybody. So if you did not see this video, I'll be showing just portions of it because if you didn't see it, you need to go give him the view. Um, this is the American Standard Dog channel, and it is titled Karen Reed Murder Trial Conspiracy Police Canine Expert Weighs In. Now, he, I believe, was found by um, Melanie Little. He was on her show. After that, he ended up going and making his own video about it. So, the interesting thing here is I wanted you to see, so I've left this is his website right here. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring just him up and we're going to listen to just a little bit of what he has to say.
All right, folks, welcome, welcome. This is a very special treat for you all that are joining us. It's going to take us a little minute to gather some people in. We're waiting for some more subscribers to pop in. And today we're doing a very special live presentation. You might be wondering what's on my arms. We'll get to that in a minute. But we're going to be doing a deep dive on the Karen Reed murder trial. I am not one to normally get involved in news or politics or, current affairs, but we can't ignore this one. It's live. It's happening right now. And where I got involved in this case, again, I don't normally even watch the news. I'm too busy running a business and training dogs to really pay attention to this stuff. But about 4 months ago, an attorney named Melanie Little, who has her own YouTube channel, highly recommend you check it out. It's called Attorney Melanie Little. She has about 50,000 plus subscribers. She reached out to me via email, I believe, and said, hey, Garrett, with your background and experience, would love to have you on our show. She's been following this trial from the beginning. Don't worry, we'll talk about the trial because I'm sure some of you, like me, don't know anything about it, or as I didn't, just like when she reached out about 4 months ago. And she said, I'd really like to get your opinion on one thing in particular, and that is a photo or a couple of photos of the injuries of a now deceased Boston police officer by the name of John O'Keefe. He was killed under mysterious circumstances back in January, late January of 2022. Again, I haven't been following it. I might have heard some headlines. Normally don't get involved. It's too much hype and hoopla for me. But then when I'm asked about dog bites, now my ears perk up. And so I went on her show, and we'll show a little highlight, a little clip of that about 4 months ago. We talked about my background and my experience, kind of qualified myself, if you will, as an expert in the field. And ultimately, we looked at the injury of John O'Keefe's right arm taken posthumously at the medical examiner's office. And what you see in these photos, which again, we're going to show shortly, you see a series of lacerations, somewhere in the area of like 6 to maybe a half dozen to a dozen vertical. Vertical striations, lacerations, everywhere from above his elbow all the way down near towards his wrist. And according to the prosecution, according to the state, they're saying that the deceased received these injuries as a result of a car crash, as a result of a vehicle on pedestrian accident or crash. In fact, they're alleging that Karen Reed, the deceased's girlfriend, that Karen Reed, for whatever reason, whether she was drunk or she was enraged, that she put her Lexus SUV into reverse, floored it, and ran into him, launching him some 15 feet off the street and into the snow, where at some point he hit his head and was discovered some 5 to 6 hours later in the snow around 6:30 in the morning, dead or very close to death as a result of not only hypothermia, but a very serious blow to the back of the head. And they're saying, the prosecution is hedging all their bets on the fact that Karen is the one that backed into him, and this is how he died. Again, normally I don't get involved in this stuff. It doesn't concern me. This happened up in Boston, nowhere near me. Got too many other things to worry about. But then I found it very weird when we're looking at the injuries. First and foremost, those are not injuries you would see, these vertical striations, these lacerations, not abrasions, right? Now, if you want to get technical, an abrasion is like road rash. An abrasion is like if you were riding your bike and you fell off and the asphalt abraded your skin. Well, that's very different than the injuries this individual sustained. John O'Keefe had lacerations, multiple ones.
That, my friends, is why the defense kept saying that the Commonwealth was claiming it was road rash. He just explained it. Abrasions are different. Abrasions are road rash, dumbasses.
And mild puncture wounds or minor puncture wounds. Much, much more in line with what I've seen in my background and experience as a police canine handler with dog bites. And not just one dog bite, a series of dog bites, multiple dog bites. And that's what we're going to dive in today and just kind of do a little deeper dive, not only in the case as a whole, but just really look at the evidence that's been presented. And again, it's very strange for me to do this. Normally we're talking about dog training and how to get your dog to be better behaved and all of that, but I just cannot look away on this one. Once I got involved 4 months ago and gave my recorded testimony, if you will, by no means was I in the trial, but when I went on Melanie Little's show, and she showed me this photo, and I started doing some more research, I now understand what everyone's fascination and involvement in this case is, because if you haven't been following, it is a complete shit show. It is unbelievably embarrassing what the police departments in that area have done. It's a completely botched investigation, conspiracies galore. And in my humble opinion, I don't think this lady has anything to do with the death of her boyfriend. Again, the Boston police officer, John O'Keefe. It's a complete setup, a huge cover up. And when I share these facts and circumstances with people who aren't familiar with the case, like, their jaw drops. And that's what I want to do today, just kind of share it with you as it unraveled to me, because again, wasn't involved, but once I got involved, I just really started looking at it, paying attention to the trial. That trial's going on right now. The defense rested, I think, on Monday, and jury's been in deliberation since all day today. They may have started yesterday. I don't know what's taking that jury so long to come up with a not guilty verdict, but everybody and their mom is expecting it to be not guilty. And now that's only the beginning, because step one is Karen Reed to get a not guilty verdict. Everyone's expecting that. But that's only the beginning, my friends, because once she's considered not guilty, I strongly believe the feds, who have already been all over this case for the last 2 years, are going to step in and start dropping the hammer on some folks. We are talking about lies. We are talking about horribly botched investigations. We are talking about, how would you describe it? We got Spider off camera there. How would you describe it's like nepotism. We've got the lead detective of the case, of the murder case. The lead detective is very lifetime long friends with those who we believe actually may have committed the murder, right? And we'll talk about that theory in a minute, but we're talking about a situation where this homicide investigator should have recused himself from this case from the very beginning. The body was found right in front of the home of the lead homicide investigator's basically family friend. And it appears that he's done a great job, or probably not that great of a job, of covering up that family. And again, I don't try to subscribe to conspiracy theories. And you all might be watching this going, Gary, you've gone off the deep end. I don't blame you for thinking that. But if you really look at the facts that have been presented, it's enough to make your head spin. It's like, how did this even go to trial? And so we'll talk about some of those facts. But before we dive in any deeper, we'll talk about these crazy things on my arm. So these are Armin Lagan products. They have been designed and manufactured for probably well over a decade now, but my near and dear friend, Steve Sprouse. Now, Steve Sprouse spent over 30 years in law enforcement, the vast majority of that as a police canine handler, and more importantly, a trainer. And we plan to have Steve on our podcast here soon. By the way, keep an eye out for that podcast. Episodes are dropping this week. We just launched episode 0 just a few days ago. We're going to be pushing those out on our second channel. Great opportunity for us to plug that second channel. Look for it right now. We need to grow that channel. It's under my name, Garrett Wing, and it will be the Garrett Wing Podcast. We'll be plugging shorts and medium form content on the main channel, the one you're watching us on right now. But if you want to see those podcasts, if you want to see those interviews with folks like Steve Sprouse, with folks like Sean McDonough, who's a 35-year DEA veteran, who's very involved in this Karen Reed case. My father, a 30-plus year canine veteran, and so many other folks. We've already got those podcasts filmed, already edited, ready to be uploaded.
Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. I could just keep going and get to where he actually is telling us why he thinks what he thinks. Um, you get his opinion pretty quick, and it's what we all say. So, um, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. But Brennan, just know that it's not just Dr. Russell, okay? Any dog bite expert. Matter of fact, why don't they just all call them? The dog bite experts need to call the defense and say, hey, I am a dog bite expert. What you got? Let me see it. Then y'all can all be mad at all of them that call up. And then because y'all did such a shitty job trying to frame Karen Reed, and your trial that you had was so damn confusing for the jurors that they didn't know what number 2 was. Um, it needs to be explained very thoroughly. So I have no doubt that on April 1st, if this trial does commence, the defense will leave no stone unturned. I don't want to hear you complain about how long it takes, Beverly. I don't want to hear that you're tired. I don't want to hear that you're rushed. And goodness knows I don't want to hear you breathing in that damn microphone. So you need to figure out how to situate it somehow, because that's just disgusting. I mean, as if liking you would make it any better, it wouldn't. But disliking you and hearing you breathe is pretty bad. So move it, stop it. That's if you get to try her again. I'm hoping, I'm hoping that the the appellate court does say that you have to question the jurors on if it was in fact um, not guilty on 1 and 3 unanimously. I hope they do. And I hope they change at least one thing in Massachusetts that's so screwed up. Take the power and give it to the people. Fairness, constitutional rights. And these people that have done this injustice to Karen Reed and her family, mm, I don't know how you do it. I don't know. I don't know how you do it. I know that not everybody that was at the house that night possibly would know everything, but there's enough people that know. One of you should have at least had the balls or the guts or the good conscience, do the right thing, pick up a phone and call somebody, but it's apparent none of you did. So every last one of you that have been in there, and then what you tried to do to Aiden Kearney, big deal. His source was Karen Reed. Whoop-de-doo. I mean, really? You're gonna get upset over that? Heh, you had to know it was. The stuff he had, the stuff that came out. I mean, you know, now he might have just been directed to a certain thing and check things out because he sure did work his behind off. But he's not your typical reporter. He tells the truth and he does it in his own way. So hopefully, we don't have another trial. I was really hoping that before Christmas, Karen Reed and her family would have a blessing handed to them, that they had to ask the jury, and that it was declared that she was not guilty on 1 and 3. And Brennan, if you have any respect for the law or respect for yourself, why don't you do the right thing? And why don't you tell these people that hired you to prosecute her that you have no idea how it went past the grand jury? You have no idea how they got it indicted, not with the evidence you've seen. You know, you could do that, Brennan. You really could. It'd be nice if you did too, but nobody's going to hold their breath because y'all just don't seem to do what you should. So I hope that I hope Karen Reed giving back her life soon. She deserves it. So I'm going to say bye now. I hope y'all have a good day.